All right,
Okay.
this meeting is called to order at 7:15.
Okay. Oh, minutes.
Let's do the minutes first.
Okay, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum. And so we're approving the minutes, looking to approve the minutes of August 14th meeting.
Any comments?
Looks good.
Okay,
All right,
approved.
I'll post those.
I had thought others would be here, but Shar had raised the issue, not the issue, but the point, that the stormwater presentation that was done in July by the 5 experts on stormwater was an outstanding one. And I thought I would just go through it and briefly review it. It's a 70-page presentation, but I think there are some important conclusions, so I'm not going to go through the whole.
So before you do that, can I ask you, you've had a chance to look at that. I was assuming that it was essentially the same presentation that we got back in February when we went up to the site, remember? Is it basically the same?
It is. I'll tell you what it contains. It contains the conclusions on the stormwater, conclusions on the fire, the Woolsey Canyon fire, and also the human health risk assessment. And I can go through these rather quickly, so we'll have a very brief meeting because I want to get on to the next subject, which is the Luker stuff that I want to talk about.
Okay.
But anyhow, there are 5 experts who are hired by Boeing, and they are independent. They appear to be free to go to the Water Board or DTSC and draw their own conclusions. And they come up with the recommendations for capturing and treating stormwater. It sounds like a innocent project, but estimates are that Boeing spent anywhere from $50 to $100 million putting everything in. And for all of the outlets of water from the site, they all have one form of treatment or another, whether it's filtration or whether it's putting it into a settling pond with natural plants, or whether it's treating it with equipment. All of the water that leaves the site is one way or another is treated and monitored. There hasn't been a whole lot of rain, but this last season there was a lot of rain, and they did monitor it, and they came to the conclusion that they're meeting all of the standards. I'm going to keep this very brief. But then the fire came along and burned some of the equipment, so they had to replace the equipment. Plus there were some contaminants from the fire itself. And so the number of exceedances, which is beyond what the acceptable level is, went up. But since that time, the exceedances have come back down. And they've looked at it year for year, and the exceedances are dropping each and every year. The remaining contaminants they feel, in addition to the fire, come from such things as power poles, the treatment of the power poles, asphalt roads, those kind of things, and they are being removed. So that I feel that the group feels that they made real progress and they're falling well within the capacity of or the requirements from the water board. However, 2 years ago, the community was in there complaining that the neighborhoods were being poisoned and everything else and so on. Conclusions that are not being supported by what the community is saying. So the water board said you must perform a human health risk assessment. So they did. The experts went ahead and did that, and they did it for all the outlets, for all of the circumstances, for someone who is exposed maybe 2 days a week to the environment. They took a look at the toxicity of all the chemicals, and for each analysis they came back, and it falls within the Cal, EPA, and US EPA standards. So there doesn't appear to be evidence of contamination flowing down there, and furthermore, there doesn't appear to be any human risk assessment that they can see. The other thing, well, I'm going through this like a bullet here. Sage Ranch, as you remember, probably was a shooting range for the people up there, and so there were a lot of lead pellets and so on. So, and some of that lead was coming down as contaminant, but it has been contained, and all their testing now indicates that the lead is not coming down into the community, even though Sage Ranch is not part of SSFL. And so their conclusions are is that the stormwater treatment controls have been implemented, they are successful, and the communities are protected, and they feel that they've moved in a major positive direction on cleaning the area up. All of this is supported by scientific data, which seems to be out of favor these days, but nevertheless, there it is. So that was the basis of the presentation, and I thought it was a very successful presentation. But nevertheless, there are people out there. There was a quotation in Facebook today that said, you know, science has helped us to live long and healthy lives, and we're now in a position to refute all science.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah, Alec, I just wanted to say that when I saw the presentation, heard the presentation, I just felt like it was great news for West Hills. It was so positive. Even the results from the fire, they showed two charts. They compared that chart to the previous fire, which was, I don't know how long ago that one was.
Oh, it's
Couple
about 6 years, 5,
yeah.
6 years.
The exceedances on this fire were much lower.
Yes.
There was no comparison. You know, it was like one was here and one was here. So, and then because of that, they could clean it up much quicker. So it was very positive. It was a real uplifting.
Well, I think you're raising a good point. Is there some way that this should be going through the council or being disseminated to the public?
I think we should invite them to a board meeting and just really publicize it and try to get, you know, a lot of people, which I'm sure we could do. Of course, some people might be the freaking out people, but, you know, you have to invite everybody, so.
I had a telephone call today from a stakeholder who informed me, and I called him on for over half an hour. I wasn't in a position where I could write anything, so just what I can remember. And I can't remember who it is, if it was the state or federal government who wants to come up with a cleanup standard to apply to all of these types of cleanups.
Oh, I heard that.
And yeah, the standard would be essentially the level of
Like
the
the
garden, whatever, agricultural level.
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
And this particular person who made me aware of it feels that this is being promoted by some locals who are pushing for the agricultural level cleanup percentages. I feel that. And that's a possibility. Specific person was named.
I think we should look at that maybe next month.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
I
apparently it's
heard
gonna be
that
too
there are some
is
of
that
the
related to
legislators.
SB 633?
She mentioned the number, and I'm not
Yeah,
sure which
I'm
one.
pretty sure it was that.
Yeah, I was in the middle of doing other stuff.
I think there's a relationship to Senate Bill 633, and there was a senator from Texas, I can't think of his name.
Is this the one that they're trying to rush through?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
apparently at the 11th hour, the
Yes.
last minute, they made a change,
yes,
and nobody was notified of the change. It was made like the day before, the day
Right.
of,
you're right.
and somebody's trying to push this through.
It takes it back to the AOCs and to the,
Yes. puts,
SB 990 and just, it just puts
DTSC
the
is gonna put in
crunch.
charge of the cleanup,
Mhm.
regardless of what
Right.
rules, laws, covenants.
That's right.
I think that's going on. I don't think anybody has put a bill to all of what they're proposing.
Well,
The people who went to Washington on behalf of Hirsch's organization want to clean up the background across the United States.
right,
Well, they're the ones that I believe are probably pushing it. And if I remember correctly, taking this up at next month's meeting is too late because it's gonna be decided in the next few days apparently.
I think there's no legislative session over Friday.
I don't know.
I don't know either,
They have a lot of vacations.
but yeah, I should only be
I
saying.
know, me too.
I'm not quite sure
If we would've had,
what we
more
can do in
events.
order to advertise, because it puts us clearly in confrontation with Hirsch's organization.
Yeah, which we're trying to avoid.
So,
But had we had notice sooner about this, we could have done our due diligence and at least looked into it. But finding out, the day of our meeting, and it's
right.
obviously too late to put it on the agenda or for us to even do the research in order to discuss it on the agenda.
Were you referring to inviting the expert panel? That you didn't think that's a good idea?
Well, those people come from all over the
Yeah.
country.
They have no, they don't have a horse in the race.
Yeah, but also it's I would think that it's difficult for them
That's true.
to come to a meeting of what would consist of 15 or 20 people.
Well, no, I would think that we'd have to maybe
And
not
if we did
guarantee.
a big forum on it.
Like a big forum.
But the only problem is that we're putting ourselves back in the, and I know
In
you
the
feel.
crosshairs?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been kind of nice not getting, of course, we have other people coming at us for different things, but it's been kind of nice not having to deal with this very highly emotionally
But
charged issue.
aren't we responsible? Isn't it part of our duty to get the truth out
It is.
to the community?
Well, we sort of talked about it in the past, and the thing is, if we get the truth out there and we're not necessarily promoting it or
Right, right.
adversarial, we're just saying, okay, here's what's out there, and then you guys decide.
Right.
We still get.
We still get killed.
Yeah.
Well, remember when we had what was it called? Water U,
Yes.
Water University,
Groundwater,
Groundwater U. At the time, it didn't seem controversial. I mean, it was just a panel that came. They did a PowerPoint. I don't even think it was a panel; it was a person. Did a PowerPoint, and there were quite a few people there, and it didn't seem to be this big problem.
Well, let me take on the assignment. I had
Okay.
to talk to Kamara and see
Okay.
what she would propose. They're very, very sensitive about mowing. They're the gorilla in the room, and they don't want to come across as the gorilla. They want to present the data. So let me ask her.
Okay.
Maybe there's something in your suggestion that says maybe there should be a cleanup unit run by somebody.
Absolutely.
And have them run it and organize it, and we're part of the spectators.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
Let me pursue that with
Okay.
her, because she's very sensible, and let's see if there's something there.
And then maybe we could get special events to promote it and add some things to it, like food and whatever we think would attract.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that as long as we try to stay at arm's length as far as not sponsoring it.
No, we would be sponsored.
Well, that's the problem, is that then we're gonna take the heat from anybody who doesn't like what
Well,
they hear.
on the
Well-
other hand, maybe we can get those opponents speaking time.
There were people there at that meeting that night who, spoke up, because you could, remember I asked a question. I think we filled out a card, I don't remember. And there were a few people, not that many really, but a few people who did speak up who were on the negative side, let's say. But the answers that the experts had were, there was no argument to their answer. It was overwhelming.
You know, I mean, I'd like to see it done. I think we do have a responsibility
I do too.
to accurately report. There's
Exactly.
a lot of incorrect information being disseminated,
Yes.
being disseminated to the public.
And scaring people
Yeah.
when, you know,
The way it's being presented is intentionally to scare people. When Bonnie talks about these exceedances, she mentions, cyanide and irons and cadmium and so on. Well, what does that mean? Until you say what is the concentration, how much it is, what kind of risk does it represent? Because everything she presents is a risk.
right.
She presents it in such a way as risk. So let me talk to Kamara and see
Okay.
what I can come up with.
I think I did, Joanne was there that night, and the two of us did speak to Kamara after the meeting, and we kind of mentioned this to her, and she liked the idea. I mean, maybe she had time to reflect on it later and went, it's not a great idea, I don't know. But at the time, she sounded pretty positive.
Well, thinking
So-
back on it, the Groundwater U was a very successful
great,
program. I
yeah.
thought. The place was full every time
That's
they
right.
had a meeting.
It was informative.
And it was at the corporate center, and that room was a large room, and it was full.
Right, that's right.
So, okay, I'll take
Okay.
that on.
Okey-dokey.
The next thing that I wanted to discuss, and this might be somewhat of a road for us. At the last meeting, John Luker spoke up, and he's now been appointed as one of the citizen representatives on the steering committee for the water sequestration. The water sequestration basically is to capture and use stormwater. And whatever water goes into the ocean has to be clean. All trash is removed and so on. So within that, there are grants, and they do look for neighborhood ideas. Might take a couple of years to implement those ideas, but nevertheless, they're looking for input from the communities. Well, we don't have the time or the resources to get into that and commit ourselves to those kind of things. But what we can do is go through these projects and approve them as a committee or as a council and say, okay, West Hills approves and supports this particular project. Let me give you an example. When John was suggesting is building a holding pond in Dayton Canyon, and there are some facilities there for holding water, and it would be taken care of by the mountain conservancy, so it would be sprayed for mosquitoes and stuff like that. But having that water held and then percolate into the groundwater is one of their major goals. The other one would be something like the Chatsworth Nature Preserve, keeping that water there all year round. It's only there shortly after the storm, or in fact picking bigger areas in the Chatsworth Reservoir for water storage. It doesn't have to be, require a dam, but if you had some holding ponds there, it would be very helpful. So what I talked to John and I thought, well, why don't you come to our meetings and present these ideas to us, and then we could approve them as a committee, or we may decide we want to approve them as a council, and say, yes, we endorse this project, even though we're not doing the work and so on. But our analysis from the community says that this is worth our approval. So that's what I wanted to lay in front of
I
you.
like that idea. I like that a
That'd be
lot. How often do they meet?
I don't know, I have to get into the detail of it.
Okay.
They have $200 million, and they figure that they're going to get $20 million a year from the future. What that is the tax on people who have impermeable surfaces on their land, such as parking lot asphalt and so on. And I think it's a very active program, and I think that we should get John in to talk about some projects and see if we approve it.
I think it's a great idea.
The other thing is just going a step further, the council, it seems to me, should be lending its approval to other things such as planning and zoning or solutions or whatever, because we're still not as well known as we might be. And so maybe this might be a good exercise to see whether we like it or not, whether we fit in, and maybe might expand it into other.
Should have been at last night's meeting.
Oh, at the events committee,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah, oh, we're gonna
That's
be
good.
well, we're gonna be well known.
Okay.
There's some stuff coming up.
Well, and I'm really a supporter of the events committee. I think they can do a heck of a lot of good
We
things.
had an amazing meeting last night.
So.
Did I remember correctly that John mentioned something also about, recycling the water like they do in Calabasas for watering?
Yes.
They use the recycled water
Well,
to
they're
water.
gonna use it for drinking water. They're gonna
Is
recycle.
there-
That sounds
Eventually-
kind of weird.
No,
But
they're
I
doing it.
like the watering idea.
They're gonna recycle.
sewer water is collected, cleaned up, and is used for watering, and maybe that builds up. But eventually, the mayor is saying that there will be super clean water that will be put into the drinking
Yeah, it's
system.
come right out of your tap.
But don't you have to have a big,
Yes.
plants to
Oh,
do
yes.
that? I
Oh,
mean,
yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna start doing
That
that.
goes along with this whole thing.
That's definitely gonna happen.
See, the thing is, it's sort of funny to go up and listen to folks complaining in Sydney about drinking the groundwater, the potential hazards of perchlorate. Fact is that 15% of the LA drinking water comes from groundwater. It used to be 30%. The mayor wants it back up to 50% coming from groundwater. So anyhow, I thought this might be a good start for us in using endorsements.
I like it.
We review it, and then other people are carrying on efforts, and we're sort of behind it. Okay.
So-
Is that something that, that committee is gonna need the approval of, like John Lee or city council as a whole? Or no?
Yeah, they're represented. I think there are 5 levels of review.
Oh,
Because
okay.
they're very sensitive about the fact that in the past they haven't had this transparency. That's the N word these days. Transparency.
Okay.
And so they're trying to set it up. So I need to get a little bit more familiar with it, and I'll be able to answer more questions.
Okay.
But then I'll set it up for John to come next time.
Okay.
Talk to us.
Do you know that they actually already have like their first project in mind?
I don't know. We'll have to find out.
Oh, okay.
It's a massive undertaking, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have. They have the area divided into zones. This is a county project, by the way. They have it divided into zones. They have the management structure set up, and they have the supervision citizens review structure set up. So it might be good for John to give us a status on the whole system, as well as giving us a few ideas. Then we could establish a relationship that said, okay, John, when you get this down on paper, then we'll sign off on it as a council.
Okay.
Okay.
If something's LA County as opposed to LA City, do they then cross over?
The county has the responsibility, and they cover the whole county, and the city falls within those
Oh,
areas.
okay, so
yeah.
the
They cover
the
incorporated
city as
and
well.
unincorporated
Okay.
areas.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I just thought this would be a good start for us because it sort of leverages our position, our status.
No, it's a good visual,
It's a good idea.
absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay, we have anything else to discuss?
Not to my knowledge.
All right, well, it's 7:40 and meeting is adjourned.
Okay.